we have very special guests with us. I would like to first welcome Mr. Ankit Banpurkar. Welcome, Ankit.
Hello,
We are
good
really
morning.
glad to have you here on our show. Ankit is an assistant professor. He's into literature. He actually loves teaching. It's passion, teaching, and he is also into music. He likes to play guitar. He is into harmonium playing, tabla, wadak, पण आहे तो, and overall personality, a complete personality we can call. Uh, and he's currently teaching in Nagpur. Welcome, Ankit. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kamlesh. Thanks a lot.
Our next guest, Amogh. The interesting part of today's this talk show is something we are in two different time zones, and I think that's a boon of the technology that we are really talking about. Amogh is joining from Vancouver, Canada. I think it's the night time over there, and still he made it possible for us, to be here on our show. Amogh is into what he's been into social media industry for last 1 decade. He has been helping many startups, entrepreneurs to make themselves visible online or in the digital platform. And now he has shifted to Canada and he's into consulting, marketing specific, and he's been in this industry for last 2 to 3 years. And we are very glad that he made it. He took out a time and made it a point to join this show. And we are going to have a very interesting perspective. Thank you, Amok, for joining this show.
Thank you, Kamlesh. Happy to be here.
Yes. So recently, I remember there was a news that a senior politician is no more, and everyone started pouring condolences. But then, immediately after 2 hours, there was a clarification that this was a fake news. Like, this wasn't really the news, it was spread. And within 2 hours, the condolences were pouring in from corners of India, every corner of India, because he is a very celebrated politician, a big politician. And I suddenly realized, why does this really happen? What's its impact? What the real impact of such information? Here we call information. Information is the gold coin today. Yeah, information is the main, what we can call a currency of the world today. When you open a platform like Google, the thing you get is information. But the biggest challenge here we face is that how to utilize that information. And we are going to discuss two different perspectives. One perspective, as a professor of literature, as a student of literature, Mr. Ankit will be sharing his perspective on how does this narrative are created and what are its impact. And with Amogh, we are actually going to look how does that information is curated, it's created for social media, digital platforms, digital marketing, and how they really spread. So, first of all, Ankit, I would like to have an opening statement from you on this.
Hello, Kamlesh. Rather, it's an interesting question. Rather, it's an interesting narrative that we are going to discuss, wherein information is being misused. Now, when you say Google, when we prompt something into Google, what we get is information. And most of the time, we blame this information. We blame this information. Google has nothing to do with it. Google is there to provide us information, variety of information, rather plenty of it. But the thing is that what I need, what is my priority, what is that I want to search, is something that I have not been trained at. We were never conditioned with these parameters. But the thing is that we always, like when I consider myself as a professor, as a lecturer, the first thing that I do is that I blame my students for this. Why should I blame them when information is in abundance? Why should I blame them? At the same time, the way it has been applied, when I try to search something, automatically there is something else that comes in, and rather, when I read something, I switch on to the next information that is easily accessible to me, because of the visuals, at the same time the way it has been portrayed before. Like suppose if I'm been searching on something, now that I work in medical humanities, I when I write this term into this platform, when I write a term medical humanities and literature, I get many files. I get many files. When I read one thing, automatically there is a new pop-up that I wish to open up. So this has been cycled in this way. I'll tell you one story. I was presenting a paper, and in that paper, uh, I collected some information and I pasted that information into my paper. Of course, I quoted that. But the original author of that information was present in that conference. She raised her hand and she said, "Where did you get this information from?" I told her the source of this information. The very minute she said, "This information, the information that I made use of, was copied from someone else, right? So this was not my information, and this information was incorrect. How am I supposed to judge the authenticity of this information? Because everything that is written, we tend to consider that that information as authentic information. So this is the problem that my students, rather I am facing, we as professors are facing.
Yes. Yeah, fantastic. Amok, coming to you, how do you look at information? What exactly information is to you as a person who is into social media industry for last 1 decade?
Right. Thanks, Kamlesh. So, information, it's a tricky thing actually, because I was reading it somewhere and I agree with it, that information is not just a, like you said, gold coin. It's one of the most unique resource that has come out in the way that it has come out. Like, information in itself is not a new thing. Our
Yeah.
brains have been processing information since we became thinking species. But what has changed is a transmission of that information and collation of that information. So the information that brands receive from social media or all these digital platforms, that is the gold coin. So when a piece of information is received by the brand, it's very important because it tells you all sorts of things about your users, your customers, people who will never be your customers, people who will always be your customers. So it tells a lot of information about that. But when it comes to the people who are consuming that information, the sort of the content consumers, there the scenario is exactly opposite. So it is so tricky for the first time, I think, in human history, that a single resource is on one side literally a gold mine, and on the other side it has completely diminished its value, because like what Ankit said, I don't have to justify, like, he's a researcher, so he obviously justifies his source, but I don't have to justify my source. The information is just available in abundance. I have had people, like, when you try to ask somebody, like, what is the source of this information, Google is just something like, like a board that people point at, that I saw that
Yeah.
information over there, but that doesn't mean so. I think in today's world, what has become really tricky is when you say information, uh, your point of view towards that information really matters. Like, if you're a brand, if I'm like a social media marketer, and if someone comes to me and tells me that this is the kind of content I want to put out on social media, and this is the kind of analytics I'm getting from it, or from Google Analytics or any other analytics platform, then for me that information is very valuable, and I need to go in with a magnifying glass and see what is there. But as a user, and I guess the problem of infodemic is from the user's point of view, it is just too much. It is clutter, it is excess. And right from the time you wake up, like we all try to come out of that habit. Some of them might have succeeded, I've clearly not. But the first thing we do is we check our phone. And what Kamlesh, sorry, what Ankit said initially, there are certain things that our brain was not meant to do. And one of the things that we were not meant to do is look at the phone when we wake up. So there was recently a TED talk here where I heard about it, that the apps that you use in the first half an hour of your day uh, decide your mood or productivity for the rest of your day. So, and most of us, we go to all sorts of, some of us open Google News, some of us open Instagram, some of us open LinkedIn, some of us open Facebook, whatever it is. But that was never supposed to be the part of our morning routine as such. Even in the olden times, like when we've seen our parents do it, we used to get up, we used to get fresh, probably have a conversation, and then we used to consume the newspaper along with tea. But now it is like you wake up and the first thing, we don't even say good morning to the person next to us. The first thing we say is we pick up the phone and say good morning to everybody in the family who are not there. So that is, I think, the most tricky part about information, and that's how it should be. That's why it should be dealt
Yes.
differently based on where you are.
Yeah. 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 Please. I think there's some network issue.
Oh no, I'm done. I'm done. Sorry, that's what
Yeah. So you very rightly said that it's very interesting to know the one who's sleeping with like beside us. Instead of saying good morning to that person, we actually take up a phone and we make it a point to send good morning on family group, on friends group, or any our colleagues group, and probably that person is also in somewhere in that group, and it's like we are making that message reach to that person, but we do not take that effort to actually reach that person. Here you have mentioned the word infodemic. Today's topic, infodemic basically, when we search Google again, you get a WHO definition, infodemic. World Health Organization, it has actually termed it as a disease. And there are many cases coming up, and as a psychologist, as a mental health professionals, we have also started looking certain symptoms of this infodemic. Basically, what does infodemic says? It's a blend of information and epidemic. It's that simple. But when we were discussing the topic, so we came up with a title like "Fear of Infodemic in Post-COVID Classrooms" or "Post-COVID Era." From Ankit, I would like to know what was pre-COVID situation, and what was exactly the pre. Was there infodemic, or was there any such kind of a thing there?
Now we cannot say, I mean, when I talk about the post-pandemic classrooms, I should not say that we are living in the times, or we are living uh, with the fear of infodemic. Rather, we are living that reality. We are living in the times of infodemic. Now that we talk about the pre-pandemic classrooms, most of the times my class was not held at the WhatsApp group. One thing that I have noticed, the one thing that was changed during this period was, now whenever there is to be a notice, uh, one person would enter the class and would circulate that notice to us. Now the thing is that we have been connected with an app, with a messenger app, and everything is being posted there. Everything is being posted there. Rather, my classes, suppose if I don't want to take a class, what do? I directly message my students. Suppose the class is scheduled at 12, in the afternoon. I immediately message them at 11:55 that the class would be rescheduled, or class will be rescheduled. So this is something, the information that they get, and they have come up with the mindset that they will attend the class, but suddenly the plan is changed. Now they'll have to attend some others class. Actually, this is what is happening in my classes now. Now that I meet you online here, I'm attending a session with you all. When I see my screen, there is a message that comes, so follow us on Facebook, Telegram. There was a message that Ankit, kindly adjust your camera. It distracts me. When Amogh was talking to me, I was listening to his talk, but at the same time, when I get this message, please follow us at Facebook. So this is the information that I'm talking about, and it distracted me somehow. And the post-pandemic classes, I came up with that mindset that I will allow my students to use mobile phones in the classrooms. Like rather, this is to be the practice in Ferguson College that we would use mobile phones, but during that period we were not connected by WhatsApp or Instagram or these apps. But now when I talk about the students of the post pandemic classrooms, they get instant messages. They want to post the reality that moment itself, and they fail to pay attention to the classes. But this is not the problem with my own students only. The problem is with me as well. So this is one thing that I have noticed, that uh, our messenger groups have become classrooms. So this is the reality that I face, the post-pandemic classrooms.
Yes, we really appreciate Ankit, that you really shared the harsh reality. I would rather say it's a reality, but it's a harsh reality. I know, and when you say that, okay, I also accept that it's my mistake, or it takes understanding. It takes the knowledge of what exactly it is, and with that only we can really own the mistake or own the problem. And the first sign of resolving any issue is, first of all, knowing it and owning it, and then we'll be able to resolve it. So really appreciate Ankit, and thank you for that answer. Amok, coming to you. So uh, I had a client. So as a mental health professional, there are people visiting us. So I had a client, and that client, when that person visited, he said that I am suffering from ADHD. So we just asked whether it was diagnosed by someone else outside, some professional, doctor or psychologist or a psychiatrist. Did anyone diagnose that? So that person said, no, no, I just looked at the symptoms online, and all that symptoms are in me, and therefore I am suffering from ADHD. This is actually becoming a trend, and this is really dangerous. I know, because it's fortunate that person is walking to us for this solution and where we are knowing. But if that person doesn't come, and if he or she really thinks that person is suffering from XYZ disease or some challenges, then it becomes what we can call a mirage for them. It doesn't really exist, but for them it does exist. So how do you, as a as a social media professional who has been into this industry, how do you look at this?
So, I have worked with a few healthcare clients who have faced similar problems, more so in terms of especially clients in the financial and fintech sector, because uh, the person came to you and said that, I think I have ADHD. In terms of fintech and financial, people come and say, I've lost my money. So there's really nothing that they can do, because this is a big problem. Like, I think it was sometime during the pandemic itself that SEBI, the Securities Exchange Board of India, they had to put some sort of restrictions or some sort of regulation, if not restriction, on finance influencers. So we all know about CA Rachana Ranade. She does a great job, but there's so many out there. And as a young professional or someone who is very new to the world of finance, we are all pretty unaware when it comes to healthcare, or especially mental health. It's very difficult for me to know who is right and who is wrong. Uh, there was such a thing called, and I say there was because there literally was such a thing called as reviews. It's all colluded. It's all polluted, and you can get this thing called paid reviews. So it's really difficult now as a consumer of this information to know what is right and what is wrong. Recently, I'm sure all of us have used Chat GPT in one or the other way, but even Chat GPT has its own biases. The AI tools, they're much better than the regular search engines, but they also have their own biases, and they've been at least taught to say that, I can say this with X% certainty, or I'm not certain about this. So that's an advantage that AI has actually brought in. But yes, it is a slippery slope, and I actually feel, I mean, my opinion about this is sort of borderline controversial, I can say, about this, is that any new tool or any new science or any new technology initially is going to be misused. Like like what do you do? Like when first time cars came out, I'm sure the number of accidents were much more than what they are right now. I mean, if you compare the volume of cars to the number of accidents, the ratio of accidents would be definitely higher. When I'm sure the intention behind inventing the first gun was protecting someone, but we all know what weapons are misused for. I think information and technology is the same thing. It is made with good intent, and there are people who are pushing the boundaries and making great use of it. Like AI has helped us authenticate a lot of fake information and fake news, but then even AI can be misused. So it really depends on what you need to, how you use it. Um, you can't, I mean, as an adult, after a point, you can't child-proof everything around you, right? Like there'll be knives in the house, so why don't you go about it? So that is, you are at the end of the day responsible. What Ankit said was really great, that he's allowing cell phones in his classroom, because I think the restriction or banning approach doesn't help anyone. I think it's best for people in Ankit's position to make people aware of how to use it rather than not to use it. And if we can teach the next generation, I always call millennials as the victims of social media, but if we can teach the next generation how to use social media better, how to use information better, and I'm like already seeing it in the young people in the family and amongst friends, they actually have a better sense of using this information. So I think with time, and people will get better at using this as a resource. So I'm actually optimistic.
Yes, that's thank you, Amogh, for that answer. Ankit, coming back to you again, Amogh in his statement mentioned about AI, artificial intelligence. You're a professor into literature. You're a student of literature. You're almost completing your PhD in literature. What role does and AI has boomed, literally boomed in this last 3 4 years. So, what is its impact on infodemic, and when we call it fear of infodemic?
Yes, this question should be discussed because this has become the burning issue. The other day, because I did not know the reach of AI. The other day, I was sitting with my student of second year BA, and we were talking about the AI, and she made me understand how are we supposed to make use of this newly, not newly, but newly booming, I would say, uh, application. So, rather, 50% of my students are making use of the AI because during the pandemic, we did not correct the papers. The papers used to be conducted in 1 second, please. Papers used to be conducted uh, in MCQ pattern, so we could not uh, judge their writing pattern. But the other day, when I was sitting with my student, and she told me what are the things that we need to do with the AI and how are they making use of the AI. So my students, I have asked them to write a poem, and few of them, of course, they're not very well versed in English that they could make use of such pompous words, I would say. And suddenly they prompted 3 words in that, and within a second, a poem in a Shakespearean sonnet form came out. This was really shocking for me because many of them had submitted this assignment, and I was very shocked whether I became a very good teacher or they are very good students. So this is again a challenge before a teacher. How are we supposed to correct them and understand them whether they have made use of the AI or not? A seasoned professor can do that, but since I am a new professor, I'm a new lecturer. It has become a problem for me. How am I supposed to judge these papers? But of course, when we spend some time with the students, we get to know whether this poem was created by, whether this draft was created by this person or not. But still, if I do not know that person and the draft has come out, I'm at no position to judge that because it is anonymous. The next time there is a new draft with the same prompts. So this has become again a problem. But as Amogh has already said that he's very optimistic toward these applications. At the same time, I'm very optimistic because at the same time, but our universities are supposed to provide a platform where we can discuss and debate and talk about these newly curated app. We are going to make use of this app for the betterment of our society. But this move was unprecedented. This had happened post-pandemic, and post-pandemic era is of a shock. Suddenly, we were told to, take our classes in an online mode. We're suddenly asked to send a PDF. Now that what do I do? My students message me and they ask me to share a PDF file in the form of notes. So I do share that. I do not check the reliability. I do not check nothing. I do send that. Now students read that, and the next moment they read a next draft. They cannot think over the same draft for a minute or two, and they switch on to the next draft and they read that. Even the next draft, they after switch on to the next draft, so they cannot think. That's why they are unable to take a decision. When I ask them to write some, or when I ask them to speak 4 words or 4 sentences in a classroom on their own, they fail to do it.
Yeah, yeah. That's very true, and that's also our experience when we deal with such case studies. Amok, coming to you, we are really talking about AI, the booming of AI, and you have rightly said that borderline, whatever you said, that okay, that misused at initial stage. Every invention, every product is been misused initially. I think that misuse is more about trying to explore, trying to know more about it. But as a social media industry professional, and now you are into marketing, how do you consult about a correct information, or how to identify a correct information? What all necessary precautions to be taken to verify the information?
Right. So, what we always say is that, I mean, we are not as, what you can say, for the lack of better word, I'll say the word, we are not as stupid as we term or as we think of ourselves as. There is always a gut feeling. If I send you a unverified WhatsApp message, there is a gut feeling. There's a part of you which either wants that thing to be, and this is true in terms of controversial misinformation most of the time. First question that I need to ask myself as a user, or as a consumer of this information, and this is not for brands, this is for individuals, is this information something that I want to be true, or there is a chance that it would be true? So the want and would, because we all know our biases, and these algorithms, all the social media algorithms, they're built for engagement. The algorithm is built to keep you engaged. It knows your biases better than you know your bias, and it will always give you what we call as a confirmational bias. It will always give you information that you want to hear, so that you stay on the app longer, you engage with people on the app longer. The time you spend as a user on a social media app is their real currency, which they sell to advertisers like us. So they want you to spend the time there. But when you consume some sort of information, you need to ask yourself whether this is something that I just want to be true, or is it true? Could it really be true? And then I think there are several fact checking websites available. In fact, I forgot the name, but I myself use a Chrome extension, which is a fact checker. So all these kind of tools are available with AI. Like I said, it is getting better and better with, and even if a tool or an AI based bot or anyone else tells you that this information is right or wrong, uh, always take information that you consume online, what we call it as, with a pinch of salt, because
Yeah.
someone somewhere has put up a bias into it. So to give you an example of, I mean, where I think for me personally the alarm bells really rang was, it was I think before, yeah, it was way before the pandemic, when I was just one day I had heard a lot about US presidential debates, and I was looking at Hillary Clinton's and Donald Trump's debate. And what usually was said is, you know, we all know how Donald Trump speaks, and he's a extremely popular leader, especially in this part of the world where I live. But he said something outrageous, which was clearly untrue. I don't remember what it was, and Hillary Clinton objected to it, and even the host of the debate said, "Mr. Trump, what is the source of your information? Where do you get this? Like, how can you back this up?" And he said, "It doesn't matter," and the crowds cheered. I think that was for me the biggest shift in the mood that we have seen. That if I have a confirmation bias, if I am a Trump supporter or a Hillary supporter or any supporter of any political leader in the world or any leader in the world, so to speak, I don't care whether the information coming out of that person is true or false. I think that needs to be treated. And people, like I said, there will always be people who accidentally misuse it. There will be people who will make great use of that technology, and there will be people who will misuse it with with a bad intent. So there will always be bad actors. As a consumer, it is my responsibility to know whether what I am consuming is right or wrong. And just because I like the person or I like the medium or I agree with a certain ideology or I agree with certain group of people, my community, doesn't mean the information coming through it is always right.
Yeah. Okay. That was a fantastic example about Donald Trump. What you just shared. From that, I just remembered that probably every one of us have a family group if we are using WhatsApp. And it's bound to happen that there are two different opposing members in the family group itself. And just to defeat the argument, just to nullify, like, to make it debar the argument, you share a certain piece of information that is purely fabricated, and you share it with such a confidence that the other people who are reading it, they think, okay, if it's coming from this person, then it might be true. And that does really have a big impact, very big impact. Ankit, coming back to you, I would like to ask, uh, this fear of infodemic, what you have specifically mentioned, shared your insights. What effect does it have on your students' cognitive ability, their thinking process, their learning process?
As I said, this is no more of fear, but we are living in the reality
Yeah.
of infodemic. As like the information that is abundantly, widely, and easily accessible. Uh, it is in different forms. You know, I'm not only talking about the information about. I'm not only talking about the data. Information about anything, any information that is being utilized, by my students. uh, they need an instant reward for that. Instant reward, because they are in search of instant reward, and the information that is being provided to them, they try to seek instant reward from this information, because, and that's what I told you. uh, they fail to think over the data they have gathered. They cannot analyze that data because they are in search of some more information. The more utilization, more and more information, that's what they want to gather. But still, they want to analyze that data. They want to analyze that data, but the information, the abundance of information will never allow them to analyze that data in proper manner. So when I read something, I want to read something else. I want to read something else. They are in search of instant reward. So there is a mental block that has been created, a mental block, and that's why procrastination is one thing. At the same time, they are not in a position to think about, they are not in a position to take a stand. Or if they want to take a stand, they might take a stand instantly because they are in search of instant reward in the form of likes, dislikes. They want to reach to many people. They want to reach out to many people. So they are in search of instant result. And that's why uh, the information that they make use of, it is making them lonelier, I would say, because they don't want to talk to me. They want to make use of that information. They want to write something on their own. They want to publish it so that someone, the one who is making use of a screen, would read that information. They would not share that information with me. I'm on the other hand, as a teacher, I'm in search of my students to coming up to me and asking me about the details, asking me about, my view. But this is not happening. They directly post that information onto their sites, and someone else, the one who is reading that information, makes a comment, and they get an instant reward in that form, and they are happy with that information. So this created a mental block. A mental block when I ask them to talk, or when I ask them to present that information before me, they are unable to do it. That's why they cannot initiate an action. So this is what has been happening. They fail to initiate an
Yes.
action. Right?
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Amok, coming back to you again, our last episode of this talk show was about nurturing mental well-being of creative industry, the people who are working in creative industry. I think when Ankit is mentioning about the increase of loneliness or their inability to think, to process, there's this mental block that he has specifically mentioned. Now you're into marketing, strategizing, consulting, been into social media for a decade. Have you ever faced a mental block, and what would be the probable reasons for you to face that mental block? Does that uh, too much of information or fear of too much of information was one of the reasons?
Right. So, absolutely, like everybody else, have faced mental blocks, and as a social media professional, I can say this with certain authority that people in working in social media face it a lot, because you have to be on the top of trends, as we call it. Trends change every day, every week, and you need to be that kind of a person who can consume that information so that you can tell your clients what is in vogue or what is trending, or what we used to say, like and this has actually been studied. There was a HBR, Harvard review, uh, research about that what we used to call pop culture. So how quickly does pop culture change? So pop culture used to change every people used to say, pop culture changes every decade. Then it changes every 2 years, every 1 year. Now, right now, pop culture changes every 48 hours. And I'm not joking. Pop culture, what you call popular culture
Yeah.
today, changes every 48 hours. And it is an alarming amount of change. So yes, it does happen, and there's actually a word for it called content fatigue. What I do personally for it, and a lot of professionals actually do it, is there has to be certain breaks in your work schedule. If you're going to continuously work for 3 months with a client, there has to be a certain amount of breaks when you're totally cut off. I personally have chosen the kind of social media apps that I feel are best for my work, and I just don't use the other. I'm still there on behalf of my clients, so but I don't use it. we all know how popular reels have become. The reason reels have become so popular is because they have actually counted the gap that is necessary for our brain to release dopamine, and it is 30 seconds. That's why the reels is 30
My
seconds. It
God,
is impossible for our brain to release the happiness hormone without a gap of 30 seconds.
post.
So it just releases. So every 30 seconds, and it's almost, because I've done that myself. Once you start scrolling reels, it's almost impossible for you to stop, because you get addicted to that feeling of what's next, what's next, what's next. And what Ankit rightly said, in a generation which was born in instant gratification. Like, we all know how long we used to wait for the cassette of a new movie to come and for us to hear that music. It's all gone, right? I mean, of course, I'm not saying we should go back to the era of the cassette. We are in the era of Spotify, and we will probably move ahead from here very quickly. But that is a problem that needs to be addressed: instant gratification. And if there are people who are making money out of your instant gratification, it is your responsibility to kind of, like it's like alcohol, right? Alcohol will always be there. It has always been there. No, there has been no point in human history where people couldn't get drunk, but that doesn't mean you go out and keep drinking. If you feel one drink a week is great for you, do that. But it's ultimately, I think, your choice. So in terms of people working in the creative industry, these breaks are absolutely most important. I want to say, you have to become, like Christopher Nolan, who just doesn't use a
Yeah.
smartphone. Not everybody has that luxury, but you actually need to put the phone aside to be of a sharp mind.
Yes, yes. Very rightly pointed out, and I have you very rightly said about pop culture and the release of dopamine. I really wonder, as a mental health professional, student of psychology, when even we don't study that much in detail, and I totally agree, when they study because they are going to earn out of it, they are going to make profits. So at the end, it's ultimately everything comes down or boils down to the profit, or the money changes in its forms, but the usage remains the same. Ankit, coming back to you again. So you are teaching, you have been teaching in prominent colleges, or well-known institutions, educational institutions. But lately, I know personally that you come from one of the most tribal district of Maharashtra. From there, you have made it a point, and now you are actually into the field of literature. Really appreciate that thing. But when I am working in certain tribal zones, tribal regions in different parts of Maharashtra or India, here we are talking too much of information. And there, in certain parts, there is still lack of information, and which is this huge gap over there. So we are actually moving to the concluding part of this talk show. So I would like to understand how to breach this gap, uh, how to come out of this infodemic, what probably could be the solutions for this, and how we can enhance ourselves more.
Okay. So we're talking about the gap of information. The students living in the tribal belt, they are not widely accessible to the information. But I would say these days, even a small smartphone, it has made its moves. So even at my place, like I come from Gadchuli, when I visit the interior parts, a tribal student, I would say the one who does not even go to a school or a college, is making use of an app, because internet and the network is available now. But one thing I have realized is that, rather than making a move in a collaboration, or rather than making a movement, rather than making uh, making a right movement in sense to make some changes in their life, they keep on watching reels. This is a pathetic situation I'm talking about. They keep on watching reels, and this is what they consider as reality. They are not aware of their own reality. What are they doing? Where they're supposed to move? Where they're supposed to go from now? Where they are supposed to seek education? Most of them are making use of these apps just to connect with the outer world. But the outer world has been structured in such a fashion that they have been engaged in that outer world, and they consider this as reality. They consider this metaverse as their reality because there is no access that they can go out. They think that the world is like that, but still they lack basic amenities like transportation. In that way, they are watching something that is happening in the world, and they consider this metaverse as their reality. So most of them, of course, because we get this mobile phone, is easily accessible these days. But this is the reality that I have noticed, that they are not making a move. They are not making a move, and that's why we need to make a collaborative effort to train our own students, to train our own minds, and to make use of this data and information in a right manner. Right manner. Of course, we are living this reality. We cannot discard or avoid this reality. We need to make use of this, and we need to train ourselves and our students to prioritize something, prioritize our needs, and make use of that. So yeah, this is
Yes,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much, Ankit, for this statement, the concluding statement that you just made. And I would like to assure our panelists also and our audiences also that in this mental health awareness program, as it's a joint initiative by Anhad and Punekar News, we have been reaching not just students from city area, but to the tribal areas also. We are trying our best to understand their issues, how to breach those gaps, what are the pros and cons of it, and people like you, Ankit and Amogh, you know, when you are there with us in this initiative, so this initiative gets more stronger. And I would like to take this opportunity and appeal to education fraternity, teachers, students, social media fraternity, like Amogh is representing, that let's collaborate, let's come together, and let's make that impact, and let's strive for a better society. As Amok said, it's always going to be there. As Ankit said, infodemic is always going to be there. It's not going to go, but how to utilize. So learning the coping mechanisms, I think that's where we can focus, and that's what we can learn. Amok, coming to you for your concluding statements about this.
Right. Thanks, Kamlesh. As actually listening to Ankit, and I'm very happy, and it kind of actually supports my optimistic scenario that if students, not just in the metro cities or tier one cities, tier two cities, but even if students in the tribal area have teachers like Ankit to guide them, to tell them that this is always going to be there. Uh, like I said, I'm always against the culture of banning something, but uh, what we actually need is the education ecosystem in India telling people that that XYZ thing is going to be there, social media is going to be there, information is going to be there. The Donald Trump example that I gave. So most people would say, the fearful thing is, he said, I don't need to back my information. No, I think the most fearful thing is the audience didn't care. I think that is the real problem. We always, so there's a very funny thing that I think, I don't know, somebody like Elon Musk or someone said a long time ago, is that there will always be a village idiot. The problem is the village idiot now has a Twitter account. That is the
Oh,
problem. We need to address the fact that now everybody has a voice, everybody has a
Yes.
platform. We have weirdly, democratized information better than any point of time in human history. Uh, I think my takeaway would be that we need to be very careful and train the next generation. The way our rural areas, they just moved from regular banking, they skipped credit cards and moved to Google Pay. They skipped landlines, and from no communication, they directly moved to cell phones. I think it's a great opportunity that they can, probably skip the bad impact of social media, or the negative impact of all these mediums that had, and we can directly move them to the good parts. If we were able to achieve that, that would be great. Of course, I'm not an expert on how to do that. You need people with social engineering who can and working with technology folks who need to get it done. I think one very important thing I would like to conclude in like two sentences is that we need to work together. Like I really applaud this initiative by Punekar News and Anahad, is because that's the conversation that needs to happen. We can't work in silos. Like professors themselves, can't work in silos, and social media people and technology people, social scientists. We can't all work in silos. We need common platforms. We need to come together, and thanks to the same technology, it's quite possible now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a fantastic thing to know that we three are joining from a different locations altogether. And that's the boon of technology, and that's what actually we are talking about, and that's what we are going to take ahead from this. And I am sure that both of our panelists made a point, and they have actually shared their insights, which is not the end, but it's a beginning of something new and something very crucial, something very important. And we assure our audiences, we assure our viewers that yes, we will try to make some difference out there. Ankit and Amog, thank you so much for giving us your time, sharing your insights, and I hope like we connect back very soon again, and let's connect with something more interesting topic in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amog.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Pankaj.
Ankit, and thank you, our viewers.
Thank you,
Thank
Amogh.
you.
Thank you so much.